All right, we are live. Excellent. For the SEM BootCamp. Waiting on a few others to join. Sorry about the hiccup with Google Hangouts. That was a disaster. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get started soon. Woo! That's intense. Okay. All right. Infinite. We open up the chat area. All right. So we have a few of them. I'm going to wait for the rest to join us. I just sent them the invite. Okay. Again, thanks for being patient. Sorry about the hiccup. And sorry about the room. We're getting moved to a different room at lunchtime because this room is awful. But since spring term is already underway, we didn't have any other choice, actually.
Nice.
There we go.
Wow. So it's infinite.
Infinite. Okay. I'm gonna wait for a couple of other remotes to join us. Hey Nadia, you've joined 3 times, just FYI. There we go. All right. While we're getting set up, I sent everybody a Dropbox link. Hopefully that will eventually sync. Let's see. Should look something. Yes?
I don't think you have me under distribution.
Probably not. Let me send you the link as well. There you go. Stick that there. And new email to Bronca. And it would be there you go, Bronca. Just send it. Okay. Oh, I just closed. Hope it's sent before I close it. Oh, good. Okay. There we go. Okay, in the Dropbox folder, there is data, which we'll be using. It's the bootcamp data. And slides. Today's obviously day 1, morning basics. I haven't finished all these slides, so don't go and print them all off. I'll be editing day 3 today. All right, let's see if we have the rest of the remotes. We have several of them. Elsie, your video is showing. You might want to turn off video. And who is this? Let's see. Linda, your video is also showing, just so you know. You're welcome to turn it off. All right. And then I'll post this all to YouTube when we're done. Okay. Let's get started. I wonder. Probably. Yeah. I'll just go like this. Okay. No, I'll have to go like this. And now which screen will they see is the question. Somebody on the remote side speak up and tell me what you see. Do you see the slides or do you see the presenter view?
I see the slides. This is Linda.
Excellent. Okay, moving forward. This is great.
Dr. Gaskin?
Yeah?
I think I turned my video off. Is it turned off?
I can find out for sure.
This is Linda.
Yep, you're turned off.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So, boot camp. I'm excited. Moving forward. Disclaimer. My presence on YouTube is big, but like, if this golf course were statistical knowledge, you know how when they aerate the golf course, makes lots of little holes in the golf course? My knowledge is one of those holes. I'm very, very specific. I'm not a statistician in any sense of the word. I know, that little amount. I'm in this vast ocean of golf course of statistics. So if you ask me questions outside of my very finite knowledge, chances are you know better than I do. So, and some of you probably actually know a lot of stuff better than I do in statistics. So feel free to correct me or stop me if I'm going down a bad path. I'll try not to say anything too stupid. But really, my knowledge of statistics is very narrow, and it's focused primarily on structural equation modeling using AMOS and SPSS. And that's all I've used. And if I haven't used it, I haven't created a video for it, and I haven't needed it. And so I know nothing about it. So that's that. You're welcome to ask questions, and I'll tell you if I know or if I don't know. The plan. So last time I did this, we did this in 5 days, which was kind of nice, but it took up a whole week. And so we're going to do it in 3 days this time, which is kind of a crunch, but I think we'll get through all of it. But that means I'm sort of feeling out the structure and timing of everything as we go. So be prepared. We're going to cover everything, start to finish. The data you have in Dropbox is a raw data file. It's just what I pulled off of Qualtrics. I've done nothing to it. And so we're going to clean it together. If you want to do it together, we'll do it together. We're going to clean it, screen it, look for normality issues. We're going to look at outliers. We're going to go through factor analyses, all sorts of things, common method bias and variance tests, model fit, and then move on to actually testing causal models, mediation, moderation, figure out controls and things like that. And then hopefully there will be extra time, unlikely, but hopefully there will be extra time on Saturday, and we can delve into things like PLS or cluster analysis or something like that, logistic regression, which I actually don't know much about. Protocol. I have some slides, but we're going to go back and forth between slides and actually doing stuff. Who brought their own data to work on? I'm curious. Awesome. You're more than welcome to do everything we're doing, but with your data. And when it doesn't apply to your data, you can just watch or play with the data I gave you. But I think it's great if you're working on your own data. That's fantastic. If you have problems or questions or need troubleshooting, raise your hand, stop me. I won't address all of your issues, but I have some really, really bright students in here. And so anyone who's totally getting this, and I'm going way too slow for you, feel free to help others out. Act as a TA, sort of. For anyone who's not getting it, don't be embarrassed. This is advanced multivariate statistics, so it's fine if you don't get it right away. So do ask for help. Hey, Eric. Good to see you. Yeah, and we'll have exercises. Assuming there's time at the end of each session, there will be some exercises you'll get to work through without my help, like not doing it together with me. That way you can test yourself or work on whatever you need or do email. And I'll come around and help you individually if you need help at that point. But that way you can sort of test your knowledge. Resources. For anyone who doesn't know, these exist. StatWiki is the wiki we put together for all sorts of everything we're going over today. And I'm going to actually take you to there for just a minute. Anyone here not familiar with StatWiki? Oh, a couple. Okay, great. I'll show you real quick. Gaskin Nation's the YouTube channel. Hopefully everybody's seen that. Dropbox I just sent you. If you didn't get the Dropbox link or you can't get it to work out, raise your hand and maybe Steve will come around and help you out. He's brilliant. And if you want to print things out, I never print things out, so I didn't print anything for you guys. I'm sorry. Very non-empathetic like that. There's a printer on the 5th floor on the old building side, which is the side we're on right now. And I can't remember which side of the old building side it's on. That side. Just go that way as far as you can on the 5th floor.
I can direct him.
Okay, and you'll get to a printer. I think they take cash and credit card, things like that. Okay. Any questions before we get started? And from remote folks, any questions? Okay. I'm recording everything. I'll post it all to YouTube as soon as I can. Since we're not doing it through Google Hangouts, it's not automatically posted. I'll have to upload it myself, so be patient. Okay, stop me as we go. Today, this is what we're going to cover. I think probably several of you already have a pretty good handle on a lot of this, but several of you don't, so I'm going to cover it anyway. For those of you who totally get this stuff, and this is such a review, feel free to do email or take a nap. It doesn't offend me if you get up and walk out and do things. We're going to cover mostly the left side of the screen until lunch, and then after that we're going to cover the right side, EFA. So again, feel free to do other things if you totally get this. The model we're going to work through, we're sort of building up towards a model of sorts, is this one. It's from the YouTube SEM series playlist. Figure that'd be good so you have a double reference and you're familiar with it if you've gone through that. It's a fairly complex model with 2 dependent variables, 2 mediators, and a bunch of other stuff, including interactions and moderators and controls. And anyway, it's fairly complex. So if you can do this, you can probably do almost any SEM model you're working with, hopefully. The data we're using is from 377 Excel users, Microsoft Excel, how they used it, the outcomes of their use, and a bit about that user themselves. But it needs some cleaning, which we'll do in a bit. Bit of a lecture. Missing data. So when you clean data, first thing you gotta do is address missing data. Missing data is a major problem because, well, for several reasons. If you have missing data, you can't calculate how one variable affects another variable if there's no value for that variable. It doesn't vary because it doesn't exist. And so missing data is a big problem for that reason. But also it decreases your sample size, obviously, every time you have a missing value. Also it creates biases. Let's say we want to collect data on males and females, and you're missing a lot of reporting of gender from, let's say, the female side. Well, you think you have 50 males and 50 females, when in fact you have 50 males and 80 females. It's just that 30 of those females didn't report their gender. Well, then you have some gender-biased data. And you can't really impute gender. You don't know if it was a male or a female, and you can't just take the median, or the mean, I guess, definitely not the mean, of gender. It makes absolutely no sense, right? So essentially, if you're trying to do analyses based on missing data, you can't. I mean, it's not there. So, big problem. So you have to deal with it. And I'm going to show us how to deal with it. Handling missing data. If you're missing more than 10% or less than 10% of the data in a certain row, like for a certain respondent, well, then you're probably cool. It's probably fine. I prefer less than 5%. Actually, I prefer like 0. 0 is great. If you have enough data, I just kill those rows. As long as you're not killing more than like 10% of your sample. If you start killing more than 10% of your sample, then you create what's called a response bias. Why didn't those people answer those questions? Is there something different about those people than about the people who did answer the questions? So you have this weird response bias. If you're killing off less than 10%, not a big deal. These people just got bored or had to go use the bathroom and forgot about it. But killing off more than that creates some sort of bias. And so when you're missing data, you can impute it, take the average and the median or something like that of all surrounding responses. So if everybody answered, roughly 3 for this question, you can enter a 3 for that missing value, and that's okay, as long as it's something where 3 makes sense. You can't impute gender again, or ethnicity, or other categorical variables like that. That doesn't make any sense. And here are ways to do it. I'm actually just going to show you. And what we're going to do is option 3. Option 2 is use known replacement values. This is kind of difficult. You have to sort of see who is this person like in other ways, and then use that other person they're like, use their value for the missing value in the other person. That's time-consuming, tedious. So we're going to use the third value option, which is to use the mean or the median or the mode to replace the existing value or the missing value. But prevention, and then we're moving on to actually doing this. Prevention. If you create shorter surveys, people will finish your surveys. And psychologically, a survey with lots of pages, let's say you have 100 items, which is a lot, 100 survey questions. A survey with 10 pages and 10 survey questions per page seems longer than a survey with 100 items with 25 on 4 pages. Just psychologically, if you see that progress bar at the bottom jump a quarter after your first page, you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. That's not that bad. But if you see it jump a tenth, you're like, I'm done. This is going to take forever. So psychologically, fewer pages is better, even if it's the same number of items. And people will finish your surveys, more likely to finish your surveys. Also, obviously, make it easy to take the surveys if you're using surveys. Pre-test your items. Force completion. Now that might create bad responses, but it does create complete responses. So there are different schools of thought on that. Would it be better to not have any response at all, or to force completion and hope you get a reasonable approximation of an accurate response? I tend to allow them not to respond. That's my approach. That way I don't get yucky data. But either way, there are costs and benefits. I like to bribe people. Using an iPad drawing or gift cards or something like that. That often works. But then you also get players who just take the survey to get the reward. So there's a risk there. And there are ways you can catch those people, which I'll discuss. Let's see. Digital. Yeah, don't do things on paper unless you have to. DVs at the beginning. Yeah, DVs at the beginning. So you never want to be missing data on your DVs, your dependent variables. Because if you're missing data on your dependent variables, that's the thing you're trying to predict. I mean, it's okay, sort of, if you're missing data on your independent variables. That's not as bad. But if you're the thing you're trying to predict, you don't want to have data missing. So put those at the beginning of the survey. People are more likely to take the beginning of the survey than the end of the survey. And then put sensitive items at the end. If you're asking about whether or not this person's ever killed anyone, or if they, are a bad person, ask that at the end of the survey. So you get all the data up to that point, and then if they don't feel comfortable answering those awkward questions, fine, they didn't answer those, but you have all the rest of their data. Whereas if you stick those at the beginning, they'll just turn it off right away. Yeah?
On smartphones. Any advice on smartphones?
Surveys via smartphone. I've never tried it. Have you?
That's the way everybody's answering them now. It's like when I sent out my test survey, out of the 10 I sent out, 7 did it on the smartphone.
Really?
Feedback on things that were difficult to do on the smartphone.
Yeah, so pre-test it yourself is my guess, is what I would do on a smartphone. I've never tried that. Cool. New thing. I'm getting old. I'm behind that. Wow. Yikes, this is scary. The unengaged responses. Oftentimes, like when you offer a reward or when your survey is long, you have really unengaged responses where they just answer 3 all the way across, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or they don't pay any attention. And so things like reverse coded questions where you ask the opposite of what you intend to capture, they'll answer that the same way they answer the same way coded questions. So like if you're asking things like, are you hungry? Do you want to eat? Are you full? They'll answer all of them the same way if they're not paying attention. And that's a way to catch unengaged respondents, is to see if they answered those all the same way. And then you just chuck them out because they're useless. And we'll play around with detecting them. There's a way you can detect those. One thing I used in my most recent survey, which we're not using today, sadly, or in this workshop, is I throw in attention traps about 1/3 and 2/3 of the way through my survey. So if you're paying attention, answer strongly agree. If you're paying attention, answer strongly disagree. And if they miss those, you throw them out. Last time I did that, I actually ended up throwing out 60 responses out of 300. That's how many people weren't paying attention. That freaked me out. Can you imagine if I didn't ask that? I'd have mud. I'd have complete mud in my data. Because they weren't paying attention. They weren't responding accurately. So their responses are useless. Not only useless, they're detrimental. So I strongly recommend throwing in attention traps.
Does that depend on the audience itself? I mean, like, for example, and I'm not knocking anyone here, but if I go to students,
yeah,
and I give a survey to students, I would expect to see more of that.
I agree.
Go to presidents.
And
give or CEOs.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely depends on your audience, but CEOs and presidents, they'll answer that way too. Yeah.
So I'm curious, on your reverse coded questions, did you do those on the same 300 people, and did the same 60 fail both the, are you paying attention?
No, in that most recent one, I actually got rid of all reverse coded questions. I re-reversed them prior to sending out the survey. I hate reverse coded questions. There's literature out there saying you need to have an equal number of reverse coded to correctly coded, positively coded questions in order to balance out response bias. Americans tend to inflate their responses on the positive end. Some regions of America, other regions of America tend to be more honest. And other cultures tend to always inflate responses towards a positive. So if you have a reverse coded question in there, if they were to answer strongly agree on the positively coded, they would only answer somewhat disagree on the negatively coded. And so there's this weird inflation. So for that reason, I don't do it. But they say for that reason, you need to have an equal number so it balances out. But I've always found that my reverse coded questions, even after fixing them after collecting data, they don't load well. They don't play well with all the other items.
Can you give an example of a reverse coded item?
Yeah, so I am hungry, I really want to eat, I am full. I am full is reverse coded. It's the opposite of hunger. It's fullness. And so if you were to flip it around, it would then be, I'm hungry. Yes?
Just with reversing the scale works the same way.
This is a really good question. So we usually go from strongly disagree to strongly agree, positive end of the scale and the high end of the scale. You could reverse it, but I've found that participants don't always catch that you reversed it. Also, when you're then analyzing the data, you need to go re-reverse it because you need an increase in the trait, the construct, to be corresponding with an increase in the scale value. So if they answered 7 instead of 1, 7 needs to be lots of hunger, and 1 needs to be no, I'm not hungry. Otherwise, you get it's hard to interpret. Yeah. So I never reverse the scale itself. Yeah. Any other questions? Good questions. Thanks for stopping me.
So,
Yeah.
I came across when I was analyzing my data, one of the responses was like the first 10 was all 2s.
Uh-huh.
The next 10 was all 3s.
Right.
The next 10
This is a very common way to do this. Very common to say, oh, these questions are all the same, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. These ones are all the same, 2, 2, 2. What I tend to do is I randomize a little bit within blocks. Or you can randomize the entire thing, although that results in much less reliable factors. And it's much more cognitively taxing on the participant. So we tend to have a lot of questions for a certain construct, like I'm hungry. We have 5 questions for I'm hungry. We have 5 questions for satisfaction. And so we tend to stick those together in the same order every time for everybody. This has problems. You'll notice in the data we are going to analyze today that the first item of every block has a really high correspondence with the previous block. Because the participant didn't realize that the topic had changed for the questions. And then the next 7, which are part of this block, all work together really well.
What ratio did you use questions to?
I used about between 5 to 7 questions per construct, but it also depend on existing scales. If there was an existing scale with 10 items, I didn't reduce it. If I'm using language that doesn't make sense to you, I apologize. Feel free to stop me. For some of you who are totally new to statistics. Or
was that your question? Was your question about number of surveys per item?
Right. So that was the question.
Number of respondents?
Yeah.
Oh. Yep.
Number of respondents, number of questions versus
number of items.
Item. How did you determine what your sample size would be based on the questions?
There's a power question, which we will discuss, but I'll just answer it right now. Typically, you want to do about 5 times the number of questions you have on your survey. So if you have 40 questions, 200 sample size would be nice. You can actually get by with a lot less, but for issues of power, which we'll discuss towards the end of this morning, 5 times the number of questions you have is best.
The question came up in our conversations regarding at what point do you have to use PLS as opposed to?
Okay, I just published a paper on PLS and sample size.
Sorry, what's PLS?
PLS is partial least squares.
Okay.
It's a different algorithm. We use covariance-based statistics using Amos, but then there's PLS, which is not covariance-based. It's what's called components-based, and it doesn't use the covariance matrix. I mean, there's a lot into it, but the theory, the rumor, the legend, myth is the right word. The myth is that PLS requires less sample size. The truth is PLS requires less sample size to run, but requires the same sample size to result in reliable outcomes. For power. Power still trumps. So you can run a PLS analysis with less sample, but you still have reliability issues. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Moving on. All right. Oh, let's just do it. Thank goodness. Okay. Here we go. Moving on to SPSS. Oh, let's see. SPSS. So I'm going to open the data. Does everyone have access to the data now? Anyone not have access to the data now? Good. And again, you're welcome to go along with me or use your own data and do this. I'm going to wait for you to get the data out.
James, can I have two data
You can't
sets
see my
up
screen,
at
can
the
you?
same time?
Hmm?
Can I have two data sets up at the same time?
Yeah, sure.
So-
Yeah, that won't cause any problems.
So-
As long as you don't forget which one's which. Sorry, it went blue. Just a sec. Remote folks still doing good?
In SPSS.
I'll assume that's a yes. Yeah. Good, they're all still here. Oh, look. Text. Question marks. Did the reviewers complain when you dropped 60 responses? No, not yet. It's under review. It's under review. They won't complain, though. Thanks, Donald, for asking that question. They won't complain because the ones we dropped weren't paying attention. So if we had left them in, that would have been the bigger problem. Mike asks, are there any references for attention traps? Those that aren't paying attention. I'd say go to Google Scholar and put in quotes, attention traps. And hopefully you'll find something. And if not, yeah, you can cite my paper as soon as it's published. That'd be great. Thank you. Nadia, why can't I see? I don't know. I'm so sorry. Might be a slow internet connection. That could be part of it. All right. Going to move back to SPSS. Okay. So here's the data set. It's raw. This is right off of Qualtrics. I've done nothing to it, nothing up my sleeves, and we'll see what we have. This is the ID. I'm going to scroll down. Actually, I've done a couple things to it. I removed the blank variables which Qualtrics creates. We have 377 responses here. Doesn't look like there's a lot of missing data, which is kind of nice. Excellent. The first thing I always do is create a new data set with only the variables I'm interested in. Save the raw somewhere, but then I go create a new data set. When you guys are doing all this, again, make sure you do this outside of the Dropbox folder. Otherwise, it's going to get crazy with conflicted copies and stuff. Create a new folder on your desktop or wherever with all this stuff. Also, don't drag the item out of Dropbox or else it disappears. Just copy and paste. Okay. I should probably back up my Dropbox folder. Yeah, give me a sec. All right, let me close it. No, let me, yep. Let's see. SEM BootCamp. I'm just going to copy this, stick it over here. Okay, now I have a copy. Excellent. Phew. Data. BootCamp. How about that? You just got 5 times blessed. Nice. I should sneeze more often. Okay. Here's the data. So let's figure out what variables we need. Here's that model up here. We need playfulness, comprehensive use, and I'll explain what these variables mean in just a moment. Playfulness, comprehensive use, atypical use, usefulness, enjoyment, information acquisition, decision quality. Help me remember that. Okay. So, adoption wasn't one of them. But was it one of these? No. I can get rid of adoption. And that's not adoption, it's whether you're an early adopter of technology. Anxiety. Not in here. Get rid of anxiety. I'm just holding shift and clicking on this side over here. Atypical use is in there. Good. So let me delete what we have here.
James, a couple questions.
Yeah.
People have their screens in a different layout. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
Left to right.
This, okay, so you're here, right? Click on variable view instead of data view at the bottom. Is my screen cut off? It is. Beautiful. All right. Right to there. Yes?
Tony's advice was that until we get to EFA, we should keep all of the data in.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough of those customers we don't use, so
for those of you who aren't sure yet what your model will finalize as, yeah, don't get rid of any variables. But if you have a pretty solid confidence in what you're going to end up using as your model, you can drop the other stuff. For example, if you're taking an exam where there's a fixed model, you can drop everything else. Or if you're doing a workshop where you know the model's going to work, you can drop everything else. But if you have your own data, maybe don't drop everything else. I'm just going to do that to make it easy. Or you can shove it down to the bottom. How about I do that? I'll just shove it all down to the bottom. There we go. Pull this down to the bottom. It's just a lot to sort through when you're doing each of the various analyses.
Yep.
Come on. There we go. Okay. And latent comprehensive use. Yes, that's one we're going to use. Design expectations fit. No. Efficacy. No. Ease of use, I don't think was up there. Joy was, right? Yeah, enjoyment. Okay.
James, how are you toggling back and forth between
Alt tab.
Thank you.
Unless you're on a Mac, then it's Command tab. I think.
Command tab.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, that's
Something.
I don't know.
All right. Joy multi-purposing. Is that on here? No, thank goodness. That one's a mess. Playful is. So let me drag that out.
Maybe it'll be easier to delete since we're people that are interested in their own data.
True. True. We're almost there. It'll be all right. All right. Playful repurchase intention. No. Skill acquisition was a yeah. No.
Backseat driver.
Social desirability. I'm actually going to delete this one because it's a bad one. System satisfaction. No. System success. Ooh, that's yes. Actually, I need to relabel those. Okay. This is the old data. I think this is the one. Oh well. Okay. Unfaithfulness. No. That's unfaithfulness with computers, not with significant others. And there we go. Okay. Stick that right there. Useful, it was in there, I believe. Yeah, right there. Okay. So now I have just at the top everything I'm going to use.
Would you mind posting that to Dropbox?
Just save that as is. Yeah. Let's do that. Actually, let me make one more change before I do that. System success is supposed to be info acquisition and decision. Let's see. Info, and then decision. Okay, so 1 through 5 is info. Info ac. I'll do this and I'll post it. Info ac 1, info ac. Oops. Info ac 2, 3. 5. Okay, and this would be decision quality.
James, you left all those control variables in there, right?
I did.
And that's everything. All the control.
Yep. They're not too in the way. There are only a couple of them. There we go. Okay. Now let me save this and send it to you. And I want to save just as is because it's what we're using the feature. Okay, save. That is now on the Dropbox folder. So feel free to download that version. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go over to chat and make sure nobody's dying. Okay. Good. Nadia connected, but she missed the beginning. Sorry, the beginning wasn't too informative. You'll survive, and it's all recorded. Okay.
You're in the data folder, right?
Yeah, data, just that one file there. And again, make sure you drag, or not drag, copy and paste that out to a different folder, so you're not editing the same one I am. Okay, who's still waiting on the data? Okay, I'll wait a sec. Find a seat. I sent you a Dropbox link.
The useful one is down at the bottom. Out of the, or
Yeah.
useful one.
Yeah, all the useful ones are there. Yeah. Okay. All right. Moving forward. So, first thing to do then is to see within these variables that we're interested in, is there any missing data?
Forgive me, James, what was it called?
bootcamp.sab.
It's the same.
Same file. I didn't change the name because I didn't really change much of anything except the order of variables. Okay. So to find the missing data, is go to Analyze, Descriptives, Frequencies. You'll be able to find the missing data this way. And just throw in everything we're interested in, which is everything down to usefulness or useful 7. Throw all that in there. I just held Shift and hit click at the top and the bottom there.
So now the controller.
Yeah, just the latent constructs. You know, it might be good actually to throw in also the other ones we're going to use. Yeah, the moderators and controls.
Might as well.
Might as well. We'll have to at some point. So frequency, experience, gender, age, and education. Oops. Let's see. Age, education, experience, gender, and Excel use Excel, I think, is frequency.
James.
Yes.
There are scale values and continuous values.
Yes.
You only put in the scale values.
No, you can put in whatever you want for frequencies. Yeah, it'll check all of them. So we could throw in something like child order, and it would check that as well.
What is technically the impact, the difference between the scale and those values?
In a frequencies test, nothing. It's just looking to see what the frequency of responses are. Are there, how many 1s are there, how many 2s are there, how many 3s? Yeah, in regressions it's different, and we'll talk about that for sure when we talk about how variables move and interact.
Hey James, as I'm trying to download this new bootcamp too, it's making me do the text import wizard, and then it comes out weird.
Oh, that's bizarre. All right, give me a moment. Two is a SPSS data file.
So, yeah,
Is that right? Hit next. No, it's a real file.
how do we look at it?
He wasn't updating on the screen.
Yeah, that's not a real file.
So it's a little.
Bootcamp 2 and Bootcamp 1.
Yeah,
That was your initial. Yeah, that's when I saved.
We're trying to grab
So I
the
saved
right
over.
there.
I saved over
Let me see
Bootcamp.
if I can get it. Labels.
Okay. Anyone else having trouble with the data file? A few of you?
Yeah, when I go to the frequencies, I get the questions.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Yeah, I know how to do that.
Anyone else have any? Are you getting weird labels on it? Okay, let's fix that. Okay, one common problem is when you do an analysis, it comes out with the label, with the question itself, instead of the name, which is really annoying because it makes for an enormous table. The way to fix that, let me run this real quick so it's there. So it looks more like this. I'll show you. You go to Edit, Options, Output, and here this should be names. Also in pivot tables, this should be names. And then hit OK, and then it'll work. You have to recreate the analysis, I believe. Yeah? Yeah, which file are you trying to use? It's just the same file as before. It's not a new file. Okay. Okay, you might also need to change, if you're still having that labels issue, you might need to change on the general, display names. Instead of display labels, do display names. Under General tab, display names. Okay. For those who are having trouble with the data still, let me email it to you. Humbug. All right. Who's still having trouble with the data? Mohammed, right? Hillary Hendricks. Who else is having trouble with the data? Anyone else having trouble with the data?
James, can you send it to me? I don't need the same trouble, but I was having.
What's your email? What's your Sammy?
Number 7. JM Sammy.
Oh, JM.
JM Sammy number 7.
JM, that one, good. Anyone else having trouble with the data? Yes, who was that? Sorry.
KB Ozian Crowley.
KB.
OZAN.
Yep, there we go. Anyone else? Okay, let me send the data. Okay, hopefully that'll work out. Wait a moment to get it there. Always have kinks at the beginning of these things, then it runs smoothly when everybody's set up. Or smoothlier. Less bumpy. None? Maybe we'll have to create some. If you did age and education and...
That's correct.
Okay, so we'll find some missing data.
And the output, you have display model viewer or pivot tables.
Pivot tables?
And charts.
And charts, yeah.
Yeah. Decision quality. Useful.
Okay. Those who I emailed it to, you have it? And is it working? Is it working? Probably, yeah. Need it definitely.
There we go.
Yay, okay.
Thank you.
The email one works. Okay. So, where were we? Analyses. And analyze descriptives, frequencies, all that stuff, including age, education, gender.
We dumping it all in?
No, I'm not throwing in all that stuff we're not using, like unfaithfulness and anxiety. We're not using those, so I'm not using them. Just all the stuff I had at the top of that file.
What are you stepping?
Yes?
You have two variables, a scale and a continuous variable, like age and category age, or age and category or education category education.
Uh-huh.
Have to put both inside?
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
Because if you created a category, that means you've already imputed things.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was all the way down to, which was the bottommost?
The bottommost was useful 7. And then I added age, education, experience, gender, and use Excel. Okay. And now I'm going to run it. Just as is. I didn't change anything on statistics, charts, or anything like that. Just going to run it. Didn't do anything. Yep. Then I'm going to scroll to the top of that analysis. Look at all that stuff. Here it is. And then there's this table. This really skinny table. Oh, fat, short table, I guess. And I just want to see if there are any zeros in there. So, no. I mean, not zeros. Anything other than a 0. 0 means we're not missing anything. How about that? We're not missing anything. Awesome. Well, that's stupid. Yeah, dough. Oh, Shane needs the data set. All right, just a sec. Yes. Yes.
I know when you're doing the sprint, you have to run the missing values or missing data.
Yes.
But what I did when I first put the data was just eyeball it.
Yeah.
And then I put it in Excel to see if there were any missing.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Now, when you're writing your paper, you have to say that you did both, or
no. Okay, yeah. So when you're writing up a paper, let me show you some stuff real quick. Whoops, what did I just click on? Here we go. I'm going to go to StatWiki. There's in StatWiki, if you go to General Guidelines and go to this example analysis, which is right here actually, it says how to write up the wording on all of this stuff. So for missing data, here's what I wrote.
The same as what you put on your example?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that'll give you the wording for how to report all this stuff. Okay, so that's just in StatWiki General Guidelines. A lot of good stuff here, actually. Yeah. Okay. So we found no missing data. Dope. Let's pretend we did. Let me go delete a value. So let's go delete a value. How about this one, Joy7 for what's her face? This guy. So Joy7 for number 23 or something. It's now missing. If I went to go replace that missing value with the median or the mean, it was a 2. Bear in mind, it was a 2. If I want to go replace that, having no clue what that value was, I'd go to transform. Is that right? Yeah, replace missing values. And I'd go to the ones I knew I had problems with. And I knew I had problems because I did the frequencies analysis. And it was just Joy7. What do I want to replace it with? This is on a 5-point Likert scale. So I want to replace it not with the mean, but with the median. Because you have a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4, or a 5. You don't have a 3.2 on a Likert scale. So I want to replace it with the median. And I'm just going to replace the actual variable itself. So I'll rename it the exact same thing, hit change, and say I want to do it as a median of nearby points. And how many points? All of them. So it's going to just take the median of the entire column and give that person that value. If I hit OK, it's going to say, you sure you want to replace that value? Oh, cancel, hit change, there we go. And then hit OK. Yes, change existing variable. And it's going to give me a, it gave me a 2. That's pretty accurate. Yeah. Yeah, I did this time too. I changed it back to the original variable name. So it would replace that variable.
So you should not change the wording joy /7.
Joy_7, yeah. That's, you can, if you want to create a new variable with all the values imputed, name it something else. If you want to keep it as the same variable and replace that existing variable, name it the same thing as that existing variable.
How come you put Joy7 actually at the end of the list?
Oh, because it essentially created a new variable named the same thing. So I can go put it back.
How do you do that?
Go into variable view. It's down here at the very bottom, Joy7. Click it once like that, and then click and drag. Joy7 right here. So I just dragged it back up.
You do it again?
Yeah, sure. So you go down to the bottom, and you click it once on the number, and then you drag it up. Yeah.
Jim, so would you go back to transforming and
Yeah, sure. How to do that again?
help us to understand when do you use a median?
Oh, let's just talk about it. You use the median when whole numbers, integer whole numbers, are the possible results. You would never use a mean when you wouldn't have a decimal, because means almost always end up with decimals. When would you use something like a mean? If you have normally distributed data, and it's possible to have a large range of values, age, income, things like that, where there could be big gaps between those values.
So do you have to do, kurtosis, skewness check?
You might want to check it before you use a mean. Using a median is usually pretty safe. Yeah.
In here, he suggests that you assume that the distribution is normal.
Yes.
And therefore, he suggests using the mean.
If it's normal, yes.
Well,
If you're assuming it's normal, yeah, you can use the mean.
So is that a good argument if you say that?
I would never assume, but yeah, you could if it were normal. Problem for those who aren't getting that, if you have a non-normal distribution, say it's skewed really far, the mean is actually towards the tail, and the median's towards the middle. Well, the actual middle. So it's better to use the median when you have non-normal data. I just like using the median all the time because it's a little safer. Yes?
Just one small point. You have your copy opened up in Dropbox every
Yes.
time you make a change.
So I haven't made any drastic changes yet, so I haven't saved it as anything else. Yeah, thank you.
Just every time, so every time you get a update saying Dropbox has
Oh,
changed the file.
I'll save it somewhere else.
You're the
All right.
one changing it.
All right, file save as. Not a bad idea to save elsewhere.
So I'll be looking for that cup of hot chocolate later.
There we go. Let's see. Desktop. I'm just save it here. Or you should do it over there. Oh well. Save. Okay.
Just saying.
That's fine. Here we go. Okay.
Drag dropped that Joy7_1. Did you rename it then, or did?
I did Joy7 under Joy. Just I got rid of the _1. Yeah. Okay. Moving forward. So that's missing data. The next we need to check after we've gotten rid of all issues with missing data, either imputed them or found those who had a lot of missing and just deleted those rows.
So I'm sorry, James. When I drag it, I change the name, but then it won't let me correlate has it. Do I delete the first Joy7?
Yeah.
Can you only do one at a time?
No, you can do multiple at a time.
All of them at a time.
Yeah.
You slide over, if you notice, like you have 6 or 7 different ones that have it, you slide over, and then what do you do as far as naming them?
Just let me show you. Okay. So let me get rid of Joy. Here it is. Joy4, delete, and Joy5, delete, and Joy3, delete. All right, poor thing. And then analyze. Nope. Transform missing variables. Replace missing values. And so that was Joy3, 4, and 5.
That's correct.
Okay. Here's Joy3, 4, and 5. I'm going to throw them all in there. And for all of these, I'm going to change the name back to what it was. So get rid of the _1.
Yep.
Median with nearby points, all. Change. Same here. Change. Change. And then hit OK. Yes, change existing. Go back. And it's moved those back to the end of the data set. So let me go grab those again.
Put it back in place.
Stick them back in place.
Otherwise, you're going to be hating every time you do an analysis.
Yep.
Of anything.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the best way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
This one.
For now, yeah. That's the way to do it. Yeah. Okay. We've taken care of missing values, which is important. If you have missing values, there are other things you can't do later on down the road in Amos. The next thing we need to do is look at outliers and normality, things like that. So let's go look at some normality issues. And I have, if you want, on the slides, I have I have some examples, I think. Here we go. I have slides that say how to do all this stuff. Okay. Anyway, let's go do this. Okay. Analyze. Descriptives. I believe it's an explore. Let me just check for plots. And it automatically creates them. I'm going to create a histogram, but get rid of the stem and leaf. So I went to analyze descriptives explore. Not yet. Okay. Descriptives is fine. Plots. Normality plot. Yeah. And I'm having a histogram. Continue. Options, anything in here? No. Bootstrap, I won't do it now. Okay. Do I want to do this with everything?
No.
Thank you. That was my conscience speaking.
That was awesome.
So you could do it all at once. What are we trying to figure out? We're trying to figure out, is there skewness and kurtosis, and are there outliers? That's what we're trying to figure out right now. So do we want to do that on all the variables? Yes, actually. It's all good, conscience. We're good. We do want to know at least kurtosis for all of the Likert scales. And we definitely want to know skewness and kurtosis and outliers for the non-Likert scales. On the Likert scales, we don't care really about skewness so much because it's not a big scale. And so being skewed, the only problem you'll have if it's skewed is if it's also kurtote. It has all the values in the same place. Everybody answered 5 for do you like ice cream, right? No, who's going to answer 1 on that? So everybody answered 5, and so there's kurtosis there. There's no variance. If there's no variance, you can't predict how a change in one variable will predict a change in do I like ice cream, because there is no change in do I like ice cream. So you have to have some variance, which we analyze with kurtosis. But we do need to see it for like age and education and experience. So I'm actually going to throw all of these in here, and it's going to be a big fat mess. I don't have to do it for gender, but I'm going to see what my distribution is. Throw all that in the dependent list. Yeah?
Where I'm getting a little hung up is that in this data set, you do see some bimodal-ish distributions on a number of the items.
Yes.
So that looks pretty skewed.
So we'll talk about it for sure.
Thank you.
Bimodal distributions.
Because their z-scores are a little out of whack.
Okay. Here we go. I think it ran a whole bunch of stuff. Nope, still running. That's going to take some time.
Yeah. Those are all in the dependent list, right?
Yeah, just stuck them in the...
Put in the variables.
Yeah, stuck in all those variables that we're using. Yes. Sorry. What?
Did you put in education?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of histograms.
Yes.
What do you show in a report?
Nothing. This is for your information only unless there's an issue. So here's what we'll do. Let's go look at this stuff. Here it is. Here's this big fat report. We don't need to see any of this, really, unless there's missing. Hey, we could look down here for missing values. That would have been easier. Currently, there's no missing. Descriptives. Here's all the skewness and kurtosis. Kind of an ugly way to look at it. There are better ways, but we'll look at it here. Again, we're not interested so much in skewness, more in kurtosis for these Likert scales. And kurtosis values greater than 1, absolute value. That's the formal strict rule. The more lax rule is greater than absolute value of 2.2. I tend to use that as my rule, but as a practical rule, you don't start running into real trouble unless it's above like 2.8. Yeah.
So in your other videos, I think you suggested a different approach
like
you do the z-score.
you do
For skewness and kurtosis.
right, divided by whatever.
Divide the statistic by the standard error and compare with
Right, that's a really strict approach, yeah. But that takes time. And honestly, so in all practical, for practicalness, I've done a bajillion of these studies with various DM students and other students. And so I've run a bunch of these analyses. And I've found the trend is you never really have much problem with kurtosis unless it's pushing 2.8. That's just my experience. Every time it pushes that threshold, we start running into trouble. But up to that point, I never seem to have an issue. Yeah.
When do you use the z-score?
So the z-score is just this value, the statistic here for kurtosis, 0.173. Sorry, that's kind of small. And you divide that by the standard error, and if it's greater than 3.3 or something like that, then
In terms of application?
I don't. I just look at the raw score here, this kurtosis score. If it's greater than 2.2 is the literature-based rule. If it's greater than 2.2 absolute value, then you have to report it. Now, if it's greater than 2.8, then you're going to know you're going to probably have some problems. Okay, so let's just eyeball it real quick. So 1.73, not a problem. 2.2, oh, yep. Yes?
Just if the kurtosis was 1.8 or 1.5, do we have to worry about it?
No, because we're going to use the more relaxed rule of 2.2.
Okay.
Yeah. So 0.109, not a problem. 109, 594, not a problem. 009.
Don't matter?
Nope, absolute value is what we're looking at. The negative and positive determines peakedness or flattedness. So far, looking pretty good. Yep. 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 Wow, looking really good.
You said anything over?
Over about 2.2 is what we need to report. So we're getting close, 1.4, 4, 3. These are actually really good values. Wow, I was expecting some problems. All of these are just fantastic. Whoa, if we don't have any problems. Oh, here we go. Here's one. 2097. It's getting there, but it's not a problem.
Oh, yeah, information acquisition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Here we go. Here's 1 over 2.2. Yes!
Information acquisition.
3. Yeah, info acquisition 3.
Yep.
So, we should keep that one in mind. I'm going to make a little note to myself. Info ac 3 was 2.598. Okay, back to here. Fine, 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 fine.
The absolute value, right?
I am.
Yeah, yes.
These are all looking pretty good.
What about six?
Useful 6, 2.305. Useful 6, 2.305. I'm also looking at these skewnesses as we go, and they're actually not a problem anyway, so I don't feel too bad. Ooh, age. Holy shnikes. Age at 7.589. Who did we sample? 18 to 22-year-olds. Yeah. You can see the range here, right? Is that in here, the minimum and maximum? 17 to 35-year-olds, but the majority of them are 18 to 22. They're sophomores. So, of course, we're going to have kurtosis there. But age is a control. So do we really care? Not particularly. Not a big deal. Education. I'm surprised there's so much range in education. Experience is good. Gender's good. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so it's just those 3. So what do we report? We report that all of our values were mostly normally distributed except info acquisition 3 and usefulness 6, which had kurtosis values of blah, 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 greater than 2.2. But we did not remove them We only flagged them just for further notice. If they might cause trouble down the road, but we did not remove them because they were hardly over that threshold. 2.5 is not vastly over the threshold. Let's say we were at like 3.5. I would just remove it right now. Just drop it.
James,
yeah.
Do you have a reference for that rule of thumb?
The 2.2?
Yeah.
I might. Down here somewhere. Unengaged, outliers, influentials.
There's some literature that are more strict.
Right. Outliers, test for skewness. Skewness. Hair is the 3. Here it is. Sposito et al. 1983.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so go to Google Scholar and type author : Sposito. Yep. 2.2. Okay. So, we don't have to do anything. And for age, we saw that tremendous kurtosis. We just explain it. Say also for age, we saw kurtosis, but it's because we're sampling students, and so it's expected. Plus, it's a control, so it's not going to really affect our theory. And we leave it in. Okay, that's skewness. Now we can go look at the distributions down here if we really want to. Not terribly normal, somewhat kurtote. You can look at this plot. That's actually fairly normal. Here are the box plots. Here's some outliers. Now, outliers on a Likert scale. No such thing. I answered 5. Does that make me an outlier? No, it just means I strongly agree that I like ice cream. There's nothing bizarre about that. If I answered on age, let's go down to age. That's going to take forever. Age. Here we go. Okay. Age. Here's our distribution. Whee! And then a couple outliers here. You can see all normal until the end. Here's the box plot. Okay. Number 7, huge outlier, 35. That's older than me. That's just ancient, right? So I mean, that's beyond the scope of. I'm gonna shut up right now. So our sample generally falls between 17 and 26. There are some others. What do you do with them? Do you kick them out just because they're old? And that sounds like a lawsuit just waiting to happen. You can't do that unless that's beyond the scope of your theory. If my theory is that, how to say this tactfully, early 20-year-olds, there we go, early to mid 20-year-olds have certain behaviors and tendencies, well then these guys are out of the scope of my theory. And so I can drop them. But if I just want to know how people use, in this context, use Excel and things about them and what the outcomes of that use are, I have no justifiable reason for kicking these guys out of my sample. So I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave them. Yes?
Should sample size thresholds have a bearing on kicking people in and out?
Yes, a little bit. Okay, let's say we only had 30 people in our sample, and everybody was 18 to 22, except one person who was 50. That's weird. I mean, they're clearly not part of the general demographic we're looking at. If it's part of your key variables, like your main variables, not a control or something like that, then I'd say maybe drop that person. But if it's just a control, still, unless you can theoretically justify lopping them off.
What did you do in this case?
In this case, they're not outside of my theoretical sample, so I keep them. Okay.
James?
Yes?
Difference when you analyze outliers between stars and circles?
Stars are extreme outliers.
And the circles you should also consider?
You should consider lightly. Stars consider seriously. There are some issues though. Let's go to education. Okay, we were sampling sophomores for the most part. Here are some people with 5 years of education. I don't think that's unreasonable for a sophomore, really. My brother just graduated with his bachelor's after 9 years. So it happens. Let's hope he never watches these videos. Okay. Excel experience. Ooh, okay, here's some weirdness. We have people reporting they've used Excel. 3 people reporting they've used Excel for 15 years. That's a little weird. I mean, Excel's been around for 15 years, so that's fine. But how old are these people? Let's go look at numbers 273, 180, and 60. Let me write those down real quick. 273, 180, and 60. Here. Nope. Here. Okay. Go to data view. Go down to number 60. Was one of them, right? Here we go. 60, and we're curious about their age. If they've used Excel for 15 years, we want to know how old they are. This person's 24. I mean, it's possible, right? They could have been using it since they were 9. It's possible. Number 173, no, 273 and 180. Here's 180. Do you have to do this? The answer is yes, you do. You don't want weird data in there. This person's 22. They've used it for 15 years. That means they were 7. A little less believable. 273. Age 21. They were 6. I mean, we don't know. I mean, they might have been. Again, it's a control, so I'm not too worried about it. It's possible. Improbable, but possible. I was using Excel when I was a teenager. Yeah. Yeah, my daughters, I don't know, have they? Yeah, I don't think they've used PowerPoint, but never Excel. So, anyway. Okay. So, am I going to do anything about it? No. Possible, but improbable. Okay. And I think that might be it. The next is gender. Here's our distribution for gender. Males are 1, females are 2. So we have a lot more males than females, which is understandable in a technology class in the business school. Use of Excel, very normal distribution. Beautiful. All right. We've examined normality and outliers.
Can you real quick show how to bring up all these tables again?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, go to Analyze, Descriptives, Explore. Yes.
This education case where you have this outlier, would you impose the median?
No, because it's possible. I mean, if they said they'd been to school for 30 years, I'd probably do the median, because that's very unlikely.
So you let it like that?
I let it fly. It's just a control. Okay. Just a control. Yeah. Anyway, in here you would also make sure on the plots check the histograms and normality plots. Okay. Whoa, that's not what I meant to do. Oh, cancel. Okay. So that was normality, outliers, influentials, missing data. That might be it for screening. There are other things you can do, like homoscedasticity, which I think is a ridiculous joke. And looking at the distributions. We didn't look too closely at distributions, but we looked at skewness values, and the skewness values were all pretty decent. So I'm not, or not skewness, kurtosis values, and they were all pretty decent, so I'm not too worried. Homoscedasticity, just a word on that. It's a terrible word. And the other is heteroscedasticity. What does it mean? It means that there's a consistent error for different values of your variable when predicting another variable. And the school of thought currently out on this is that it doesn't matter. You could have heteroscedasticity or homoscedasticity. Everyone's good. We're okay with all that. It's fine, and it's even expected often to have heteroscedasticity. And if this doesn't make any sense to you, that's good too, because it doesn't matter. So don't worry about.
Should we do a test on it? Or is it the mean, or?
No, it's a residual plot. if you really, really desperately want to do it, I have a couple videos on it where I say this is ridiculous, here's another video, this is ridiculous, here's another video, this one's still not right. There's also not a good way to test it right now. But the school of thought is that it doesn't actually have an effect on your results anyway. Yes.
Thing about 20 different times.
Yeah.
And almost every time I run it, I have all the bubbles spitted all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I look in the book, it's all clustered.
Of course it is. It's beautiful. It's because it's trained data. It's artificial data when they're doing it in the books. Yeah, they've designed that data to be that way.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, the thought right now is that it doesn't actually have an effect on your results. So if you're checking for it, it's just FYI. And so I'm not going to check for it, but I have videos on it if you really want to look.
So going back to kurtosis, what are the consequences of using
A kurtote data?
Yeah.
Really good question. Remind me, because remind me when we're talking about variables that move. We'll talk about it right then. Anything else before we move forward? We sort of screened our data.
Yeah, so you kind of skim through the unengaged responses.
Oh, unengaged responses. Yeah, let's do that. Thank you. Okay, very important, because that affects all of this. Should have done that before. Yikes. Okay, unengaged responses. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over to it'd be easier in Excel. I'm going to copy all the Likert scale variables that I'm interested in. I clicked at the top and dragged over to, keep going, useful 7. Here we go. All the way over to useful 7. And I'm going to just copy. Word of warning. When you're copying things to Excel and back into SPSS, if you change the order of stuff, if you sort, that's going to really mess things up. So just be careful, because the sort order will change, and then when you paste that back in, if you only use part of the data, well then the data you weren't using is in the original order, and the data you were using is now in a different order, and so they don't match up. Be careful. Okay. Oh, I already copied it. Whoops. I'm going to go over to Excel. Just open this up and paste. Here's all that. And yeah, if we want variable names, what you can do is insert a row. Right click on the row here and do insert, shift down. And then go to the variable view and just drag to copy all these. Drag to useful 7 and copy, Control C. Here's a fun trick. Go over to Excel. Let's create a new worksheet here and hit Control V. Now watch, this is a fun one. Control C is copy. Go back over here. Control V, but then Control T. Sorry, that's a lot of controls, but it's transpose. Paste transpose. Paste special transpose. Okay. So we're looking for unengaged responses. One way is to see if we had any reverse-coded questions. Sadly, in this one, I didn't have any reverse-coded questions because I hate reverse-coded questions. So we can't look at it that way. Again, the way you do that is see if they answered reverse-coded the same way they answered positively coded. And if they did, they obviously weren't paying attention, or they're really fickle. And the other way is to look to see if they just answered the same thing all the way across, or to see if they went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can eyeball it, or you can do a standard deviation. So I just, at the very end, the last column, I'm saying equals standard deviation of the sample. What?
Because it's cut off.
Oh, it's cut off? Bother. You're welcome. To there-ish. Is that too far still? There. Okay. What? Oh. Standard deviation of all of that. Enter. And then just fill it all down. And I'm looking for standard deviations less than a certain amount, very low standard deviations. Yeah, like less than 0.5. That'd be a key in. They really weren't. Their responses weren't varying. So I just look at that, or I could do a conditional formatting. Conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, less than 0.5. Okay, so that was conditional formatting here. Less than 0.5. And that'll just highlight them for me. And look, this person has a standard deviation of 0.1. Wow. So they answered 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 all the way across. They're useless. Yeah, that's number 50. Well, 50, not 51, right? Because we have labels at the top here. So that's person number 50. So I'm going to make a note of that. Number 50. Scroll down here, 0.45. Let's go eyeball this one. If it's 0.45, that's pretty close. Lots of 4s and 5s. Huh. What do you think? I mean, there was some variance in the responses. Not a lot. They were just happy about everything.
You said there's no reverse coding here, right?
No reverse coding. Yeah. This is a little trickier. How do we know if it's real or not? We don't. We don't. So that's up to you.
Can we set the 0.5 rule?
We can set the 0.5 rule and then just report it. Say we got rid of all responses that had a standard deviation of 0.5 or less because that indicates non-engagement. Yeah, sure, you can do that. Yeah?
When I came across that, I thought about maybe getting rid of it, but I also was kind of worried about not, kind of transferring my own bias into the data.
Right.
Because if that's genuine.
Exactly. So it's hard to tell. I mean, if they did 4s all the way across,
right,
I'm okay killing them. Yeah, but if there's some variance, it's kind of hard to make that call.
How do you report on that, Jane? You decide you're not going to pull out the 0.3s.
You wouldn't report on that person. You just report on the ones you do eliminate. Say they exhibited unengaged response. They answered 3. Example, they answered 3 all the way across.
But if you're just going to check for it, you say
You don't even. You can say we checked for unengaged responses and found 2 people exhibiting unengaged responses, for example. Yeah, and we eliminated them. They were terminated. Okay, this one, same sort of issue. 4s and 5s. This one, 3 all the way across, except at the very beginning they answered some 2s. They got bored, is what happened. Also, if they're answering 3 all the way across, that means they don't care one way or another, so we don't care one way or another. I'm going to get rid of them. They're number 70. Remember, subtract 1 because we have labels at the top.
George, I'm sorry.
George, yes?
I'm sorry.
It's all good.
These are averages on that column there. Is that right?
They're standard deviations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, back to here. Almost done with this one. Here we go. Again, I'm not sorting because I don't want to change the order of things. This 0.49, I'm just looking at it. It looks fine. 0.3, 5, 4, 3. You can't tell with certainty. Yeah. 0.4, 5. You might want to just drop it down to a 0.3 threshold because these ones with 0.4 it's hard to tell. Okay. So lots of 4s, 3s, and 4s, but you don't know. Maybe that was right. Lots of well, this person wasn't happy. All right. Okay. So we found that number 50 and number 70 had issues. If you're going to remove these rows from your data set, start from the lowest value and work your way up. Otherwise, if we remove 50 first, 70 is then 69. If we remove 70, 50 is still 50. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, going to go to data view, go get rid of number 70. Deleted. And go get rid of number 50. Deleted. Okay, we now have 375 responses. We should at least, yeah, 375. And we've gotten rid of unengaged responses. We'd report that. We removed 2 respondents due to being unengaged. for example, their values were, they responded 3 for every item. And now, I think we've managed.
What was your conditional formatting on that?
Less than 0.5, but I think less than 0.3 would be better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Less than 0.3, it just kind of makes the zeros jump out at you, where there's no.
Yeah.
Where there's no variation at all.
Okay, let me jump back. What time is it? Let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back to this. Yeah? 5-minute break. If you're interested, the bathrooms are right there across the bridge or all the way down this way. There's also a water fountain both ends.
James, I know you went over this, but how do you cut and paste the
Yeah. Yeah, for those who want to know, I went to variable view, collected the labels or the names I wanted by just clicking. Oh, you can't. Oh, awesome. Okay, now I can't see. Okay, so you click on one and you drag like that.
Under what
Variable view. Yeah, Control C, and then go over to Excel, which for me is, where's my mouse? Here, but I have to pull it over here. And I create a new sheet, paste them in there, Control V. Paste them in there, just like Eric. Okay, so you paste them in Excel, and then you copy them again, because they have to be inside of Excel's memory, local memory. And then you can paste them wherever you want, Control V, and then it's one of these options down here called Transpose. Yeah. Okay.
Hi. One question,
Yeah.
James. Are you going to post all these videos online?
Yes, I will.
On your YouTube?
Yes.
Okay, because I have a little emergency,
that's fine,
so
yeah. They'll be posted.
I will be able to watch it later.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Let's see. Do you use the KS test for normality? No. Linda, if you're still there, the answer is no, I don't. It's super strict, super strict. And then Mike, quick housekeeping question. Afternoon session, Google Hangout invite shows you starting back at 1 p.m. Seriously? No. So what we're going to do, let me just type in here. Guys, the Hangout at after lunch will start at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. My bad. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think it says noon Mountain for me. That's going to be 2 p.m. Mountain after lunch. So sorry about that. And we'll do it the same way we did this one. Instead of the Hangout on air, we're going to do just a regular Hangout. Hangout like this one. Okay, thanks guys. Alright, what's up?
I think I missed the step when you were going this.
Mm-hmm.
When I
Oh,
did the output,
right. Yeah, go to edit. And options. And then use names right here. And then go to output also. And names.
When I select the data, I can.
And here are names. There we go. I hit OK.
Do I have to use this names now?
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
And then OK, and then you'll have to redo the analysis. Yeah.
So we ended up with one unengaged response, right? 15?
And 7.
Yeah, I missed that. Under 0.3 or so. I actually, I don't know. We didn't go through, but it seemed to me like that if one is not careful about deleting those rows, that it's possible to make a mistake.
Yeah.
So I did something that
I didn't send you the data set.
No. I did it. I made a field called case, and it just gave it a number.
Okay.
And so then I could be sure that I was deleting the right.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Cool.
James, basic question, sorry that I got here. So, so if I run just the analyze data, this is just, I don't know how to change it, but it's, I do have, see how I got the names, display variable names.
So yeah, you can do it there, but if you want it to be, to stick in your output,
yeah,
you need to do it up here. So go ahead and close that. So edit.
Okay.
Options, the very bottom. Very bottom. Yeah. And then make this names.
Okay.
And also in the output. Make this names and this names. Yes. And then okay. And then it's going to reset some stuff. That's fine. And now it should work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This looks like you ran.
Yeah.
Hardly. I think we're superior in size, and that's we'll see. It is what it is. And then, hey, I'll catch up with you later.
I said leave them alone because of the values. We were using different data. Well, we did have a weird one where like a 17-year-old who used Excel for 20 years or something. Yeah, which made no sense at all.
So didn't you just use the median? So you didn't.
For that one, I changed the 25 years to the median.
Okay.
So that's the
Improbable. It is possible. But if it's a 17-year-old, the reviewer might say.
Can you kind of skip over?
That's possible.
So
The reviewer says. Is it wrong statistic? It's not going to affect the data very much. No.
so these are
wrong like procedures.
this column is all
The reviewer says. Change them now.
So you chose one person that's safer to not do.
Yes, and then they can say what you need to do. So what you don't report it. Is it going to affect your statistics? Not that much.
Like, well, for our benefit.
Because I just
So
think
you
what
go
one
on
you have to look at.
right?
If,
Yeah.
if you change.
And then there's also
And if you
the
don't
big
change it, you don't report it.
beginning.
You'd say,
That-
if you didn't
that's
change
already looked
anything,
at.
you'd say we
So
checked
like
for
skewed it was.
outliers or normality or missing data, and we had no issues.
If you don't.
There are some
you don't
issues.
even say it's.
No, there's a protocol. So anything you do address, address also.
Oh, it's in
Bernie, did you walk on? He had a question.
Quick question.
Rain is
How, when I'm looking at the standard deviation,
Yeah.
all the reported,
All the liquor scales.
all the liquid scales, just the liquid scale.
The disadvantage of the is the way down. Everything else you have 5.2.
Yeah, he is.
The analysis stuff that
Yeah, you can say exclude list lines or exclude page lines.
Now, the first
Yes, if you have missing values in Amos, some things will. Yeah.
So I should go through.
You can either impute them, or if there's a lot missing, you just write them off.
So
You can get
like battery
values,
hangers,
it's just there's certain things we'll be doing.
like maybe like half an hour.
Okay.
Are you using it today?
Not likely. If we do, it'll be late.
What's my battery?
And
Maybe
still unlikely.
Yeah.
And your threshold for your
I'd say 0.3 is probably the best. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be more options.
0.3, no, that's just because like 2 + 2 = 4. It just makes sense, you know. I did it. I'm just not getting any report with all those histograms. I didn't answer you. I would report any histograms at all. You just mentioned in one line we observed kurtosis, a very non-normal distribution on this variable. But you wouldn't report the graphs. You ended up reporting appendices 50 pages long.
No QQ points?
No. Oh. I don't seem to be able to get any low scores in submitted.
Fantastic. Oh. Okay. All right.
Am I in your bubble? Doesn't tell each individual question, but it tells you all the questions.
Hello, Tyler.
It's good firm handshake. I noticed that you were a little bit stronger than I am, so I have to be well aware of my strength.
So where are you from?
India.
India. University.
So question. So here's born in England, and living in Wisconsin. I teach at a school called
So I should go back and pull out my adjustments.
Yes, and then you get functions inside of this PSS. The part that does the sort of
Yeah, so you done that.
I mean, I want
It's basically
even back there, Rescuer always, I just downloaded his website. Where should one go to download an Amos trial?
Just Google search Amos 22.
Amos 22.
Today's pretty good. Yeah, we'll see after all this. It goes hour by hour. That's all right. Yeah. My articles after. Yeah. Several of them are from JLB.
So they're too low tier. Maybe.
Are they though? Because there's so much there. For instance, like the Robinson Awards, 94, 95, 96.
We'll get started in about 1 minute.
Let's get a lot of
Is that the one that Rousseau was at?
Yeah, so she's kind of saying that.
You're saying that's a
And that bumps it up. Basically, when you look into it, the reality is there's a ton of Right, yeah. How was your sense coming away from that? No, or do you feel like he was unemotional about where we're at? I think he was maybe comical and just done a lot of affirmation.
Yeah. I was looking at
I wasn't looking.
All right, let's get started again. Okay. The error I was getting. If you have time later. Yeah, Nadia. If you have an issue, you go ahead and email me if it's specific to you. Okay. Okay. Let's get started. One thing, because last split screen. Okay. Because I forgot to address unengaged responses before looking at normality and things like that. Normality would have changed after we deleted 2 cases. So that's why you address unengaged responses before you take normality, which I failed to do. Sorry about that. So you then go back and recheck kurtosis and see if it's changed. Hopefully it has. In fact, we could check it, but yes.
Is there a minimum? You said you don't want kurtosis above 2.2, but is there a minimum that you?
2.2, it's absolute value. Yeah, negative or positive.
Okay, but so like if it's 0.01 kurtosis, that's okay.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not kurtotin anyway. Yeah.
When you spoke about skewness, you said Likert scales 1 to 5. Forget it.
Yeah. Why? Because really, if it's skewed on a Likert scale, it's also going to be kurtot if it's too skewed, right? Because let's say we did I love ice cream as the variable, and everybody answered 4 and 5, and nobody answered, no, 2 people answered 1. Well, it's very skewed, right? Because there's this little tail over here, and everybody's over here. But skewness will tell us less than kurtosis at this point. We just want to see if there's adequate variance on that scale. Yeah.
I have a question. So in kurtosis, we're using the true measure, the absolute value of kurtosis as a number. So if you have kurtosis which is lower than 1, it's really not an issue.
Yeah, unless it's beyond negative 2.2.
But then I have these other metrics that say like 2 times standard deviation compared against that, and it becomes an issue there.
There are several different. There are several different approaches. So this is just the approach I subscribe to. Yeah.
First one that was 1.96 times standard error.
There are all sorts of, yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like half my values are my sample set just validated against that rule, but most of my values knew within failed against the others were mentioned.
Yeah, there are various different rules. The practical matter, though, is that it's not going to be an issue unless it's beyond about 2.8. So I use that lax rule of 2.2 as the easier response. Yeah,
so if I was going to do it in a different order, then I would be checking missing data, then unengaged responses, then go to...
Yes, yes. And I think if we go to the general guidelines here, I think that's the order actually. Here it is. Missing data, unengaged responses, outliers, and then we go over here. Oh, I have missing data listed twice. Whoops. And then skewness and kurtosis. That order. How about that? I have a typo there. I was throwing you off.
Like what?
Yeah. I should probably get rid of that. Whoops. Okay. Oh no. This is case screening, so respondents. This is variable screening. So you actually would look for missing data in variables in the columns. Not a typo. Ha.
No, now it makes sense.
Yes. All right, moving on. So what I'm going to do is, yeah, there we go. We're going to just make sure we haven't missed anything real quick. We talked about all that. So I'm going to zip through these and just make sure we didn't miss anything. We talked about all that and that, and we got to here. Okay, distributions. Most of you have probably seen this before. This is a normal distribution. Here's the mean, standard deviations, and very little lies outside the third standard deviation. Most people lie somewhere within here. You can see the percentages of responses up there. 68% within 1 standard deviation. This is nice and normal. We like nice and normal. And here's how you do it. Okay. Outliers and influentials, we talked about that. They pull the mean away from the median when you have outliers. And the only time you'd take out an outlier is if it's unreasonable. I think like if you're surveying cats and somehow a dog responded to your survey, then you'd get rid of the dog because he's obviously not supposed to be there. Okay, he's trying to undermine your efforts. Let's see. Probably it's more likely the cat would do that, actually, not the dog. Sorry, not a cat person. Talked about that. Talked about that. Those are the outliers. We did it. And this is how it's mostly going to roll. I have a bunch of slides for your reference, but mostly I'm going to do it hands-on, and then I'll explain it as I go, and then just make sure we covered it. Outliers, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Abnormal stuff. Yep. Yep. Okay. Distributions, bimodal. Lori was talking about this. So sometimes we have a bimodal distribution. People on Hangouts, can you hear me all the way over here? Apparently not. All right, now I'm over here. Okay. Sometimes we have bimodal distributions where you have a normal curve at the early end of the scale and you have a normal curve at the end of the scale. Is this bad if we didn't expect it? Yeah, maybe. But let's say we're studying gender, and so we have males and females, and we're actually going to moderate by gender. Say for males, this is different than for females. We expect bimodal distribution in many cases. We expect females to answer differently from males on certain questions. And so having a bimodal distribution isn't bad, it's expected. But if you don't expect them to answer differently, maybe this is an issue. And how would you address that? You go look at those histograms and just see if you had bimodal distributions. And if you did, you just got to think to yourself, well, should we? And if you should, then cool. If not, then you might want to, what would you do? What you do is when you're running your next analysis, the exploratory factor analysis, see if it's not loading with everybody else. If it's not playing nice with the other children, then you'd throw it out. And we'll see that, yeah.
I mean, bimodal kind of talks that you have probably two groups in your data,
exactly.
Right? So which is kind of an interesting finding. So
yeah.
It's just a matter of how do you...
Which two groups are they? And you could go explore that by splitting your data in half on the group you think it might be. Yeah. Flat distributions. This isn't a major...
In the literature, if in the literature, okay, your research has been bimodal.
Yeah.
Okay, then how would you suggest handling it? I mean, it's always been bimodal, so you just...
You wouldn't even report it. I would never report I had bimodal data unless it was a problem. And we ended up removing a variable because of it. Say, I removed usefulness 7 because it was bimodal and it shouldn't have been. And also, it didn't load with others.
So you don't. You just kind of do it. You don't like. It might drive you to an action or something. Like that.
Yeah. Okay. Flat's not really a problem as long as there's variance in that flatness. Although some analyses do assume normal distributions, like regressions assume normal distributions. And if you don't have a normal distribution, some of those outcomes can be slightly swayed, influenced by the non-normal distribution. How much? Depends on how flat or how kurtote or the problem is. But for most of what we're doing, it's not an issue. Yes?
If you have multiple groups besides 2.
Like 3 groups, 4 groups? Mini peaks or just messy?
Many peaks.
Yeah. It could be both. Either, yeah. Not both. Either. Yeah. Okay.
So if you were to sum up, because you've been pretty clear about with Likert scales, skewness is not really an issue. With continuous variables, it can be a huge issue.
Yes.
But the thinking behind when you're doing a measurement model or you're doing your structural model is at the end of the day, why don't I really care that it's not normal? Because the skewness suggests that a lot of this data is in fact not normal.
Yeah, so it has a lot to do with the question we're asking, right? Again, if we're asking if people like ice cream, or if people think that they're generally nice or more intelligent than their peers, we tend to see skewed distributions on those, and it's expected.
That suggests then common method variance, right?
If it's not true, but if everybody really does like ice cream, I mean, that's the response. Now, who here actually knows how normality affects regressions? Who here has some education more than me on this? Could you say a word?
Yeah, I know it affects like your prediction intervals, your confidence intervals, just things like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, your influence.
So there is some influence on the regression outcomes. Yeah. Is it? Do you know if it's like major? I don't think it is major. I think it's a small effect. Especially, it can be hidden a lot. Also, what's the word? There's that scripture: "Charity covereth a multitude of sins." Sample size covereth a multitude of sins. The more sample size you have, the more this normality issue is just swept under the rug and not effective, and not affecting your effects, your analyses. Okay. Again, if I say something stupid, stop me. I tend to do that. Pulling the median, or the mean, excuse me, pulling the mean away from the median. So that sort of describes it. There's kurtosis for you. The one we're really trying to avoid is that middle one. We don't want everybody responding the exact same way, or else we can't predict its movement because it's not moving anywhere.
So would a positive kurtosis score indicate tall and skinny,
Yes.
and a negative that's
Flat.
monocritic?
Yeah. And here are all those rules of thumb with Sposito et al. 1983 using the 2.2, so that's one you can use if you like. And we did it all. Okay, that's all the screening. Okay, moving on to some other basics real quick before lunch. We have an hour. I think we'll definitely cover it. Testing for significance. There are two different tests for significance that we focus on typically in these basic statistics. We want to see if there is an effect of one variable on another variable. When I change this variable, how does it change this variable? That's a regression or a correlation. When I want to see, is this sample different from this sample? You know, do kids like to eat ice cream more than adults? That's a t-test or a difference of means test, and ANOVA. We can test for the significant difference between the two groups on that variable. And I'm going to show you both. Let's see. Here's a quick example. How important is it to eat your vegetables? So we asked, not at all important to very important on a 0 to 5. And we asked 3 different groups, ages 3 to 10, excuse me, 11 to 17, and then adults. And what we found was that pink, ages 3 to 10, found that it wasn't very important to eat your vegetables. Whereas teenagers felt it was somewhat important, and adults felt it was a little more critical to eat your vegetables. Now the question is, are these samples different? Is the pink really different from the yellow? If you have a lot of sample size, yeah. Yeah, we'll see significant effects if there's any difference. But if we only have a little bit, no, the means actually fall pretty close to each other. They fall within about a standard deviation of the other guy's mean, right? Here's the mean here and the mean here. This mean falls within about the standard deviation and a bit of this mean. So they're probably not that different. Whereas the blue, adults versus children, there's clearly a significant difference there between their responses. And that's you can do that with a t-test or with an ANOVA.
Is that the sigma difference? Is that what it is? Is that sigma?
Sigma.
Yeah, like 3 sigmas out.
Oh, standard deviations?
Yeah.
It looks right now that this mean is about 3 standard deviations from this mean. But let's do a test for it. Not with vegetables, but let's do something else. Here's SPSS, hopefully. Nope, come on. Escape. SPSS? My SPSS is not coming up. Awesome. Come on. Windows D. SPSS. There it is. Excellent. Okay. So let's do an ANOVA. On what? Let's pick a variable, any variable.
Joy.
Joy. Let's do it on joy. I have some composite variables here. Let's see. Somewhere. Are they at the bottom? Oh, maybe I dropped them. Okay. Let's do it on joy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll do analyze. We're going to do a compare means. You can do a one sample t-test, or let's do an ANOVA. I am fond of ANOVAs. If you want to do a over time sort of thing, test it at time 1, test it at time 2, you could do a I think it's paired samples t-test.
You're not highlighting joy.
Not yet.
Only joy, right?
Not yet. I'm just going to go to compare means one way ANOVA. And I want to see if on joy 1 through 7, throw that over there in the dependent list, based on the factor of, let's say, gender. Go find gender here. Gender. Throw that over in the factor. So gender's down at the bottom there. Contrasts, no, nothing I want to see here. Post hoc, no, although there are some useful things there we can look at some point. Options. I like means plots a lot. Throw in a means plot.
Do you want the descriptives?
Yeah, we can throw in descriptives so we can see what the actual values are. If you're combining two data sets, you could do what's called a homogeneity of variance test. This is a Levine's test. And so let's say I collected data from firefighters and from policemen, and I wanted to try to combine those data sets. I'd run a homogeneity of variance test with occupation as the factor. And this would tell me if they're significantly different or not on those variables, if the variances were different.
Yep.
Continue. And OK. Here's what we end up with. Descriptives, ANOVAs. The ANOVA will tell you if they're significantly different. So in the SIG column here, men and women are not different. Not significant p-value is what this is. In fact, they're not significantly different on any of those joy variables at all. And here are the plots, but they don't mean anything because they're not different. But you see male and female, male on the left, female on the right. Males have more joy in joy 1, but less joy in joy 2 and 3, and it's just there.
Interpret that with the null hypothesis statement.
Yeah, the null was not rejected. They are not different. Yeah.
James?
Yes?
What's the difference between exclude case analysis by list-wise?
List-wise, I actually have that in the slides. Let me show you. I think I do. In the missing data area. Maybe I deleted it. Well, you can exclude cases list-wise or case-wise. Oh, here it is right here. Ha! In SPSS, exclude pairwise means to exclude missing data on variables. To exclude list-wise, to exclude missing data on rows, cases.
So what is better?
What is better? You don't need either. We don't have any missing data. No.
Because I'm using my own data, what if you have a big difference between the number of men and women? So, like I come from a very male-dominated university, so I always have like 3 times the men.
So, what kind of effect is that going to have? Okay. Your differences are going to depend a lot on the smaller sample, the smaller group, so women in this case. If you have so few, like 30 women versus 90 or 100 men, then that might have an effect on analyses later on down the road. Also, the ANOVA won't be as significant if you had, whereas if you had like 100 females and 200 men, you'd have more significant ANOVA values. Later on down the road, if you're trying to do moderation based on gender, say look at these models for men and for women, your smaller sample size is going to struggle to find significant effects because the amount of error, which we'll talk about in a minute, is going to be more dominant because there are fewer cases.
At this point in the descriptives, using the ANOVA, what would you suggest we test?
So for your own analyses, for that model we're testing right now, we don't need to do ANOVA for anything. This is just sort of for your information. If you want to do, you would do this for things like when you want to know if samples are different on a single variable.
So if you're looking at, for instance, 2 companies, and
yeah.
you want to know if
performance is different.
Performance is different between 2, because you might have an issue where you need to do something related. You need to explain that. So you can run an ANOVA test on the 2 different companies, determine if, and if it's non-significant, then
they're not different.
You could put them together
Yep.
and then not have an issue.
Yep. Things like that. But the ANOVA does not tell me that one variable affects another variable significantly. It only tells me if 2 groups are different on one variable. You can also do it for more than 2 groups. You could do it for ethnicity or something like that. And you could see the differences between the multiple groups. The way you do that, I didn't show you. One-way ANOVA. By the way, there's this quick access dialog right here. This button right here shows you all the recent stuff you've done.
Sample size, though, what does the sample size need to be on a particular variable if you took 2 companies? my overall sample size is 300, this company's 100, and this company's 50. Is that really?
You only have 1 and 1 in that case, right? 1 sample size, so that wouldn't work fantastically well. Yeah, but if you had this industry and this industry, and you have 10, 100 companies in each industry, then you could compare those. Yeah. There are tests for 1-to-1 that we won't talk about because I'm not very familiar with them. Instead of using gender, if we use something like child order, throw that in there. Child order is where your first child, last child, middle child, or other, I think. Something else. If I do a post hoc, Tukey's, there are a bunch, Bonferronis, most of these do the same thing. I use the Tukey's. What this will do is instead of comparing two groups, because we don't have two groups, we have like 4 groups, this will compare every pair of groups. So hit OK. It's going to run. And this says, so only child, first of many, last of many, middle of many. Those are my options. Those are the various groups. And this, if I go down to the multiple comparison table, I can see the only child is significantly different from last of many and middle of many, but not from first of many. We can see in this SIG column. These p-values are less than 0.05, but this one's not. So only child is not different from first of many. Interesting. Down here, same results. Only child, first of many. Only child, yep, pretty similar. Cool. So that's a paired comparisons. Cool. On to, and again, feel free to stop me.
Is there a one-sentence answer for why they call it one-way ANOVA, or is there a two-way ANOVA?
Who knows the answer to that? One-way ANOVA versus Mancova.
One side of the tail, right?
I have no idea. I got a C+ in statistics. I was engaged that semester. It didn't really count. And then I got a B- and a B+ in my next 2 graduate level statistics classes because I just hated them. And I only passed because I was sitting next to a really smart guy.
Who was it?
Jeff Jenkins. He actually works next door to me now. He got hired on. He's really smart. And I hope he is watching this video.
Still sitting next to him.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah.
When you got to the Tukey check box, what were the other things you asked for?
Just Tukey's. Yeah. They all do roughly the same thing. No, well, not all. A lot of them do roughly the same thing. Make multiple comparisons.
Why does the Tukey's
CD? Are they different? Slightly different algorithms. Yeah. You can play with them. Okay.
James, it's just easier to look at the homogeneous subsets charts at the bottom as opposed to going through all the multiple comparisons, and you can just see where they actually load.
Let's see. Homogeneous subsets. Oh, cool. Hey, that's brilliant. You can't see it. Wait, sorry, they can't see it. Here we go. There you go. That's brilliant. Is that Mike?
That's Don Barnes.
You too. Also brilliant. That's way cool. Wow. So we see only child and first of many load together, and last of many, middle child, or middle of many load together. Huh. That's awesome. Thank you. Huh. Okay. When I ran the Tukey's, it's the bottom, the homogeneous subsets.
But it doesn't say it's significant.
Oh yeah, you'd have to go up here to see the significance values. Yeah. Okay, how do I, let's see, drag that.
TK or TKV?
I use
James,
just, yes,
Gaskin?
yes.
This is Linda. One of the things that I found that I just wanted to give a heads up to everybody is you need to be aware that if group 1 is different than group 2, and group 2 is different than group 3, it does not necessarily mean that group 1 is different than group 3.
Exactly. Yes. Okay, moving forward.
Trying to get those last 2 loading. You just pointed out.
Sorry, the last, oh, I used the Tukey's. And it's just at the bottom, the homogeneous groups. Okay. We did that. Okay. I've used the word move a lot. I say variables move together. So a lot of what we want to do with regressions and with structural equation modeling is we want to see if one variable affects another variable. If they move together, is what we say often. And so how much of a change, or when we change effort, how does it change performance? And if this is the value for the variable, low, like a 1 on a Likert scale, and high is a 5 on a Likert scale, then when effort moves, oops, are we getting any sort of, there we go. So when effort moves down, what does performance do? It moves down. What kind of a relationship do we have? A positive correlation. Even though it's moving down, they're moving down together. And so it's a positive correlation. When they move up together. It's a very strong positive correlation. They're moving consistently with each other. If they move, effort moves a lot and performance moves very little, well, it's still a positive correlation. It's just not as impactful. If effort moves down and performance moves up, right now it's an inverse relationship. If taken together, if effort moves up and performance moves up, and effort moves down and performance moves up, well then there's no linear, consistent linear relationship. Maybe there's some weird curved linear relationship, but there's no consistent linear relationship if it's moving up regardless of what effort does, which would be nice, right? That'd be really nice. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to explain changes in the y, the dependent variable, through changes in the independent variable. For example, this is one of my favorites. The rise in organic food sales, or X, predicts the rise in autism almost perfectly. The correlation is 0.99. That's just brilliant, right? Obviously, this is a correlative, not a causal relationship. Even though they do move together really well, there may not be any cause there. It just sort of happens. There's another one about pollution and pirates. You know, the more pollution we have, the fewer pirates we have. Which obviously they move together over time, but there's no cause. Sort of like trailer parks and tornadoes. Although there might be some cause there.
I think there's something.
There's something. It's just very consistent is the thing. Very, like another 0.99 correlation. Regressions. Real quick. And again, you can't see my screen. Escape. In SPSS, you still can't see my screen. Bother. They installed these new systems where it always, you start duplicated and then it does an extension when you throw in PowerPoint.
Same problem at Case.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. So, regression. Analyze. Regression. Linear. There's also curve, partially squares, automatic, which is fun. Linear is what I'll show you, because that's what Amos is based on. It's just linear regressions. It's also what PLS is based on. Well, smart PLS. There's one called Warp PLS, which is based on curved linear relationships, which is pretty cool. I haven't played with it too much.
I've installed. It's pretty simplistic interface. And
it is, yeah.
But it is kind of cool.
All right, so regression linear. Let's say we think that what should be our independent variables? We think joy and playfulness will affect decision quality. How about that? Decision quality. And typically you do these with, not with the individual survey items, but that's what we have to work with right now. Typically you do this with more composite variables like in Amos. But you can do it in SPSS as well. Statistics disappeared. Excellent. Never mind. Oh, it's because of the extension. It's killing me. It's up here. It's hiding from me.
So.
Stop hiding. Where'd it go?
What descriptives?
Come on.
You only put in just a couple variables there. What happens if you put in all of them? Does it work like
It's completely disappeared. Awesome. One moment. There it is. Magic. Can you imagine if I didn't know how to use computers? This would be terrible. There we go. Ah.
James, I can't seem to find one of your variables in my data set. Which one?
I use joy 2 and playful 2 on decision quality 2.
What does decision quality 2 look like?
Dec qual, or system satisfaction 7 or something like that.
If you were to put all of the constructs, joy 1 through 7, does that then constitute a construct, or is it going to individually interact?
It's going to do it individually. Yeah, so typically we do this with composites of those, joy 1 through 7, decision quality 1 through whatever it was. Yeah. Here, okay, and here's your regression. Here we go. Here's the regression. And it says the significance is significant. The p-value is significant. Joy 2 and play full 2 do significantly predict decision quality. That's awesome. The p-value for joy 2 is definitely significant. P-value for playful 2 is 0.053. Is that significant? Yeah, the 94% confidence level. We'll talk about that a bit. But that's how you run a regression in SPSS. No.
The R square on that.
The R square, yeah, we can talk about R square. The R square here is like nothing, pretty much. The R square refers to how much variance is explained by the two predicting variables, in this case, joy and playful. They explain almost none of the variance. So when they affect decision quality, they affect it this much. It's significant, but it's this much change. So there's a statistically significant effect, but practically speaking, there's no real effect going on here. They're explaining 6.5% of the variance, or 6% if you consider mutually exclusive, non-overlapping variance, the adjusted R square. All right, see if we can do this without too many more hiccups. Ugh, stupid new system. Here we go. Trailer parks, yep. Okay. I think this is important to explain. This is the only formula you will see this whole time. I hate formulas. I like to just press buttons and let it do the work for me. But I think that it's very useful to understand this. This is the standard linear regression formula, where y is the dependent variable, the thing we want to predict, and is equal to whatever the intercept is, which is calculated for us. It's where the slope crosses the y-axis. The coefficient is the slope, right? It's the actual relationship between x and y, represented here, and then some error. On the next slide, sort of visually depict this. Remote folks, can you hear me when I step away from the computer?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's not what I was looking for. Oh, that was just an animation. All right, so assuming y is performance and x is effort. Next slide here. All right. Here's what it would look like on a graph. So here's y, here's x, effort, and performance on the y. These blue dots represent the responses of various people in our survey. This person responded, on the bottom left, this person responded very low effort. I should do it with my mouse so they can see. This person said low effort, low performance. Well, that makes sense, right? This person responded low effort, high performance. But in general, the line of optimal fit, the line that will minimize the amount of error, here's the error, the distance from that line of optimal fit, that's this sort of positively trending line, which is represented by B1 here.
The mouse is moving.
The mouse function.
You don't see the mouse? Awesome. Laser pointer, how about that? Can you see that? Yay! All right. Okay, so this one, low effort, low performance. This one, low effort, high performance. So there's a great degree of error right here. Because in general, we see that the more effort you put forth, the greater your performance. So this person is not with everyone else. There's a great deal of error on this response. And what we want to do with this regression line, with B1, beta 1, is we want to minimize the amount of error we observe by finding a line of optimal fit through these points. The slope is represented here, which is the effect, which is the correlation coefficient, essentially. It's the relationship between the two variables.
If you go back to SBS, you see that coefficient.
Yeah, the coefficient. The standardized beta is what it's called. Yeah.
You have a constant value, and then you have go back to SBS.
Yeah. Then I have to, let's see, here, and you can't see it, so here. So this value right here, the beta, this is, for Joy 2, this is the slope of the line. Well, actually, this is, the unstandardized is the slope, 0.15 is the slope of that line. Good. Good connection. And that's how it works. So we want to reduce error. Now, the tighter these these responses are around this line of optimal fit, the less error we have. The less error we have, the more significant our effect is, the more significant our relationship is. If all of these were really far from the line and we had a lot of error, it would be hard to find a significant effect because there really is no consistent pattern. Yes?
For a multivariate system where you have different independent variables.
Right. It's not just one x, one y. Yeah.
So you have to consider the aggregate error.
Yes. And that's what Amos does beautifully for us. It takes all these x's and y's and simultaneously calculates these lines of optimal fit, minimizing error, which is really cool. Imagine doing that by hand, formulas on graph paper. No. Anyway, that's what it's doing. I hope that gives you some reference for a lot of what we're doing. And right now we have 6 data points here. So this amount of error, it might be sufficient to make this not a significant relationship because we only have 6 points. If we had 600 points and there was this one guy out here with this amount of error, we'd still be significant. But with only 6. So sample size makes a big difference because sample size sort of hopefully hushes up some of the error, depending on where those samples lie. But I mean, if there is a good relationship, it will hush up weird outliers. Okay, confidence and findings. This is pretty standard stuff. If you've never taken statistics, this will be informative for you. We like to see 95% confidence levels. So a p-value of 0.05. It's just the 1 minus the confidence interval. In social sciences. In medical studies, more like 99%. In physics, it's what they call 5 sigma. You have to have 5 points beyond the decimal for significance, or else it might not be real. So when they were finding the Higgs boson, a few months ago, they did not report results until they had this confidence, 99.999999 confidence that their results were accurate.
They feel huge numbers. They just don't know what their base is.
Right, so they've got to be sure. Anyway, I have often, in more exploratory studies, like with conference articles, used the 90% confidence level because it's exploratory. Oftentimes, if I have lower sample sizes, I'll use a lower confidence level, and I'll report it. And also, if you're doing things like interactions, which we'll talk about later, it's sort of it's a type of moderation. Interactions tend to not be significant, so you use a lower confidence level. And moderation in general, I tend to use a lower confidence level because it's less likely to find effects because you're cutting your sample size. Which again will make a lot more sense on Saturday. We talked about that. What does it mean to have a 95% confidence level? That means 1 out of 20 times we expect to be wrong. But 19 out of 20 times we expect this relationship to exist in our sample. Okay. And we do have time. Excellent. Okay, R square, we sort of talked about, and power, automatic linear modeling, multicollinearity. Okay, R square. Use the adjusted R square for the most part. If you have multiple IVs, use the adjusted R square. What this is how much of the variance in the dependent variable is explained by the independent variables. But some of the variance explained by confidence is also explained by attractiveness. And so the adjusted R square says, well, how much unique variance is explained in the dependent variable by these guys. Not the overlapping stuff, just the unique stuff. So that's what we use. What's the threshold? What are we looking for? Totally depends on what you're doing. I've published stuff with as low as 0.1, I think. Not percent, but 10% of the variance being explained. Very exploratory, low sample size. I like 0.4. 0.4 is great for me. Power. Power is the ability of your model to detect significant effects that really do exist. It depends on a lot of stuff. Like I said, if you're doing something exploratory, you lower your confidence in order to allow for more power to detect significant effects that really do exist. The more sample size you have, automatically the more power you have. If I sample this little group right here regarding what they're going to have for lunch today, there could be very little consistency. I have very little power to detect the average idea of what you're going to have for lunch today. If I sample more of you, I'll have a very accurate idea, a more significant outcome. So sample size makes a big difference. Model complexity, this one, number of independent variables. The more variables you have predicting something, the more likely you're going to obtain some significant effect. The rule of thumb is power of 8. I'm going to show you this calculator. Can I jump to this calculator? Will it let me jump to this calculator? Or is it just going to, because I'm on this little highlighter thing. No laser pointer. Is it going to let me? Come on. Here we go. On my screen, not yours. Let me throw it up there. Okay. If you click on that link, you get to a power calculator. Now, there are two different ways to do this. You can do an a priori power estimate, which essentially says how many responses do I need in order to achieve sufficient power, 0.8 power. And that's before you even collect your data, you run a power analysis. That's the preferred way to do it. And like I said, I think it's about 5 times the number of survey items if you're using surveys, number of observed variables. If you didn't think about that ahead of time, or you didn't get the sample size you wanted, you can do it post hoc, which is what we're going to do here, by looking at this calculator. Where's my mouse? Right here. Okay. You'd go over to power, down at the bottom, statistical power for multiple regression, and number, oh, Superman. Number of predictors. Well, let's do it for this model right here. How about that? This model. We have 2 predictors. So I'll put 2 in here. Observed R square was 42. So 0.42. Probability level. So what kind of confidence level do we want? I think 0.05 is great, so I'll keep it 0.05. And sample size, let's say, we don't know what the sample size is, so let's say 30 and see what happens. Our observed power is 0.98. That's great. If there are significant effects to be detected, we detected them. Let's change this up a bit. Why is it so strong is the question. Why do we have so much power with only 30 sample size? It's because of that R square. That's a pretty substantial R square. If we had a lower R square, let me change this up to something like 0.2 and hit OK. Notice our power drops to 0.6. That's kind of small. Let me increase the sample size. There. So drops to 0.6. Not enough power. So if we had that low R square and we had a non-significant effect, we were expecting to be significant, we'd say, Well, the hypothesis wasn't supported, but we didn't have enough power to detect a significant effect anyway. So with a little more sample size, maybe we could have supported this hypothesis. So what do you do at that point? You say it's rejected? Yeah, you say the hypothesis is rejected, but it's in the right direction. It's at least a positive correlation. We just don't have enough power to see if it is significant.
Your threshold's 0.8 on a slide.
Yeah, it's got to be above 0.8 power. Now, going back to this slide here, what does that mean? Let's say that, again with my mouse, here we go. Let's say, laser, that this is significant. We know from the p-values, for example, that this is significant, and we only had a power of 0.06. Did we have adequate power to detect a significant effect? Yes. It's significant. We found it. Ta-da! We have enough power. We don't have to do a power analysis if we find significant effects. Obviously, we had enough power because we found a significant effect. Is it spuriously significant? Is it a false positive? No. We found a significant effect. We had enough power. If we didn't, let's say this is not significant, and we didn't have enough power, do we know that it's not significant? No, we don't know. What we know is that we didn't have enough power to determine with confidence, at 95% confidence level, that this was significant. We don't know. We're not confident enough. We didn't have enough power. But it is in the right direction. So we'd say something like that. Okay, questions about power. It's kind of a weird thing, yeah.
So if you're right, if you don't have enough power and you're trying to report that, is there like a unit of measure for power? You say power equals.
Yeah, power equals.
How do you talk about that?
0.64 observed statistical power. That's the value right there. Yeah. You'd say we calculated post hoc statistical power. What is this?
Is there like a Greek letter or something?
This is an ad? What the heck? Oh my goodness. And I can't see over there. Where's my mouse? Oh my goodness, where's the X? Over there. I just can't see on my screen, so. There we go. Sorry about that. That's funny. Okay. Yes. Ah, yes. So sample size has a huge effect. If I change this to just 100 even, and I hit calculate, then 0.99. That R square of 0.2, no problem. Like I said, sample size covereth a multitude of sins. Yeah.
Are you still going for higher than 0.95? Or
No, for observed power it's 0.8.
Oh, 0.8. Okay.
Yeah. For this one here, for probability level, that's your 0.95. Yeah.
So James,
Yeah.
a priori, before you contact your survey instruments, what's the recommended way of setting your R square? 0.4 or?
So yeah, we don't know what we have a desired R square. Our desired R square probably is 0.3-ish. Yeah. Is in more like behavioral type studies, 0.3-ish. If you're doing other types of studies, it's higher. If you're doing performance, firm performance, the R square is going to be maybe 0.05, 0.1. Is really hard to predict firm performance. So it just depends on the context of the study. Okay. Which screen am I on? Let's see. That one. Depends on all that stuff. So for example, we sort of went through examples, so here are a couple more. 2 scenarios. If you want a really high confidence level and you have a low sample size and you have a lot of predictors, you'll need a pretty high R square to achieve 0.8 power. But if you have a lower confidence level, higher sample size, fewer independent variables, then you can get by with pretty low R square and still achieve adequate power. All right, automatic linear modeling. This is just fun. Tell you what, I'm going to jump back to that after I talk about multicollinearity. Multicollinearity. Multicollinearity is a problem if you are predicting something with a bunch of variables that are sort of similar. Let's say I'm predicting engagement with anxiousness, excitedness, and eagerness. These are all sort of similar conceptually, right? So the amount of variance Eagerness explains in engagement might be overlapping with the amount of variance or the kind of variance explained by excitedness. So you can run a multi-collinearity test to determine to what extent your predictor variables are overlapping. If they're too overlapping, you get rid of one of them because it's inflating things unnecessarily. It's inflating the effect. Let's do that. I think that is the last one, and then we'll have some exercises for the last like 10 minutes or something. Automatic linear modeling. Escape. Okay. And again, my screen is split. Okay. Wait for it. Okay. Automatic linear modeling. If you went to analyze regression, there's the automatic linear modeling. With this data, actually, I was trying to predict in a different paper. I was trying to predict skill acquisition, trying to figure out what it was that would predict the amount of skill one felt they were acquiring after using Excel. And I couldn't figure it out. So I found this tool, automatic linear modeling, which sort of figures it out for me. And of course, it's on the other screen. Oh, bother.
Okay, so that analyze and then which one?
Regression, automatic linear modeling. There it is, way up there. Let me pull it back down. There we go, and then, okay. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just throw everything over into the fields. Because by default, it throws everything in predictors. So I'm just going to get rid of all of it for now. That was analyze, regression, automatic linear, regression. And in the target, I'm going to put, let's say, info acquisition. Right now, I only have these items, which is no good. It'd be better with composite variables, but we don't have them right now, so we're just going to fiddle with it. Let's say I want to predict decision quality 2. What is it that really predicts decision quality when using Excel? And I'll throw in stuff like info acquisition. I'm just going to throw in a few things. Playfulness. I'll just take the 2 on each one of these. Joy. Comprehensive use. Atypical use. I'm holding control and clicking. Usefulness. And why not? Throw in age, education, experience. How about that? And throw those in there. I just have a bunch of stuff in here. Pretty atheoretical. I really just don't know what predicts decision quality. I'm just saying, just tell me. I don't want to think about it, which you should never do, by the way. But I mean, if you're at wit's end and nothing's working out, and you're trying to predict some variable, and you can't with everything you've theorized, this is one way to just explore potential antecedents. Okay, and then I just hit run, and it thinks for a bit, and here's what we get. Nothing. Double click it, and it comes up with this.
What was the target field again?
I used decision quality 2, I think.
But this is something that should be run with composite.
Yeah, I'd much prefer to do this with composites, not these individual items. Yeah. Okay, so what we have here, if we skim down,
Build the composites in SPSS then?
you can. We're going to do it in Amos. Yeah. Boy, the print is really small here. I wish I could edit copy view. Nope, that's as big as it wants to get. All right. So this one, the third box down, says how important is the predictor in predicting decision quality. The only ones that made the cut are Excel helps me learn, which is who knows what. That's useful, I'm guessing. And using Excel improves my work performance. Actually, that's probably useful. So who knows what that one is.
How did you get to that?
I double-clicked the output box. Yep. If you go down to here we go. Oh, info acquisition. Excel helps me learn. If you go down to here, this one down here, you can't see my mouse. Oh, it's all hidden over there. Nice. Okay, this one right here. then this gives you sort of a more visual way to do this. So at a significance level of, it says 1, let's do 0.05. Yep, these are the only ones left. If there were a bunch on there, it would have trimmed those out.
What does the weight of the line mean?
It means how strong the impact is. So significance, if I put my mouse over it, says the p-value is 0.000, and for this one also 0.000, but the impact of information acquisition is stronger than usefulness. The next one over shows that I might have some other effects. Let me, again, coefficients, let's go to the 0.1 level. And there are negative effects. The yellow, or the orange, is negative effects. That makes no sense to me at all. Cool.
James, which one's the object? Because I have only model viewer.
Yeah, double click it. Yeah?
Is that the same variable since transformed one to?
Yeah, so for example, this one, InfoAc transformed. So it did a little bit of transformation on it to make it more normal. It does that automatically. But you can see the coefficient for some of these. So here's coefficient of negative 0.592. These are different ways to transform it. Wow. But no matter how you cut it, information acquisition too has a negative effect on decision quality. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But that's the way statistically it rolled. Whereas usefulness, it helps me perform my job, has a very strong positive effect. There's the coefficient of 0.317.
I only see the one that I ran. I only have yellow. I don't know blue.
Bunch of negative effects.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah.
So yellow's negative, right?
Yep.
Thank you.
So significance, that's P. Coefficient, that's your beta weight. But what is that importance?
That's the predictor importance. Key influencers, it's this thing up here. It just says when predicting the variance, when we look at the dependent variable and how it moves, which variables explain its movement the best. It's like R-square. Yeah.
Just between the independent variables.
And the dependent variable, yeah. So you'd only see independent variables up here. And that's how they explain the dependent variables movement. So that's fun for exploration. For multicollinearity, let me close that. Let's say we had a bunch of variables predicting decision quality. I'd run a regression, analyze regression, and just do regular old linear regression. And let me throw in a couple more here. So I have Joy 2, Playful 2, InfoAc 2. I typically use 2. Just have a few in here. Usefulness 2. Okay. And for statistics, I'd want to run collinearity diagnostics. Right here. This is going to tell me if they're multicollinear. And hit continue. With decision quality 2 as my dependent. Hit OK. And we get a bunch of stuff, but the table I want to look at is this coefficients table. And there's a VIF, variable inflation factor. And this tells us to what extent the variance explained in the dependent variable is explained by multiple IVs the same way. So are they explaining the same thing, like this slide here? Are they sort of overlapping in their explanations of change? And the value we're looking for here is anything above 3. 3 is a warning, 5 is a strong warning, above 10 is a red flag. If you're above 10, that's a problem. You have two variables that are almost identical in the way they explain the dependent variable. You should probably remove one of them. So
if you use like all of the joy variables, that's what you probably expect to see.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. Linear regression.
Again, though, should this be done with, isn't it better done
with composites? Yep, it is.
Why is that?
Because you wouldn't ever run this sort of thing on individual survey items, because you're not building a model based on survey items. You're building a model based on their composites, which we'll do tomorrow, maybe today if we get time, at the end of the day. But I did these all with joy, and you can see, yeah, they're all flaring up to above 3.
James, is there a button for collinearity?
Yes, in the regression, if you go to statistics, it's collinearity diagnostics. Okay. I can't believe we covered everything. That's amazing. Yay.
You should have below or above 3.
You want less than 3. Yeah, but it's okay to even go up to 5 or maybe even more, but above 10 is really bad. Yes?
Is there a reference?
Reference for VIF? Google it. I'm not sure off the top of my head. There we go. Yeah, and probably Hare. Joe Hare does a lot of this stuff. Yeah. All right. If you would like, if you're one of those folks who likes to work over lunch, there are some exercises that you're welcome to try out. That I'm happy to help you with. I'm going to grab some lunch because I'm starving. But I'll come back to not this room. We're all going to walk over to 240, I think it is. Was that the was somebody? Was it 240? Not 420? W. Yeah, W. Was it 240 or 420? 240. Okay, great. I'm going to walk us all over there if you want, and then I'll help you out with some stuff after I grab some lunch. I'll come back to the room.
Before you go, could you please email me the adapted data set?
Yeah, sure.
I can't get it off the drop.
That's fine.
Thank you very much.
What's your email? JKS. Okay. All right. Remote folks. Let's see how you're doing. Okay. Yes. How to replace missing value in same variable. It's in the video, so you can go back and watch that. You just name it the same thing, essentially. Yes. Let's see. At the beginning of the model.
I'm gonna jump interview, so when we take off.
Okay.
You know, I'll be back, of course, for the afternoon.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anything else you need me to do?
We're good. Let's see. At the beginning of the study, we created we came up with the final model. How is that going to prove if we met our hypothesis or not? We can't see, and we have reference of the paper of the explained model in our session. Haven't published that paper, so it doesn't exist yet. Everything good here. I'm good and have everything you need. Thank you. Good here. Maybe 54 minutes late. Okay, that's fine.
So all of this is recorded to where we could access it later?
Yep, it's all recorded.
Okay, because I will not be discussing.
Okay.
Maybe what we can do is buy you something that I can use as well.
Yes?
At the beginning, when we created our study, you showed us a model.
Yes, the model is in the PowerPoint. It's not published yet. It's a paper we're currently writing.
Well, I just want to understand something. So what is that model? At the end, when you composed and you created the final model, how did you predict your hypothesis? Like you said, if one, for example, this affects that, how did you prove that hypothesis?
Oh yeah, we're gonna test those for sure. That'll be the last thing we do, probably on Saturday. We're gonna test all those relationships.
And then after we come up with the final model, then we can refer back to our hypothesis and see like which one was
supported or not supported.
Okay.
Yes, that'll be the thing we do on Saturday. Cool. All right, I'm going to end this session and we'll start a new session. I'll send out another invite starting at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, so in 2 hours. Thanks, guys. Okay. How do I end broadcast? Oh, I don't end broadcast. Close. And then close.